Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome to the 11th day of my trial. My challenge, the 30 days. This isn't live or anything, but, today's the 11th day, so woo. Last episode was the 9th that I just got done recording, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to finish this book, have a clear conscience going into the first day, because it's still not the first day for me. The first day is in an hour. So let's pray I can read fast enough to do that. Yeah? Yeah. But yeah. Let's get this book started. This is the final one. 220 to 240. How's your guys' day going? Am I doing mentally okay? I hope so. Let's start. It acted sort of like one of the cheer curtains for his mom had hung in their kitchen. You could still see it through it, but it obscured the details. Tuesday morning, Devin knew it he'd done that day before. He remembered everything. But it was just that, murky enough to feel unreal, as if he'd watched it on a scary movie instead of living it. Before he and Mick had split up and head home for the previous afternoon, Devin had said to Mick and it together. Mick had repeated the words flatly, like a robot running low on power. It had worried Devin before he went to bed last night. The morning he had concerned, Mick would be quiet. Mick was, in fact, quiet. Too quiet. One of the things that Devin had been able to count on for previous 10 years at school days would be his stark chattering. Today, though, Mick wasn't chattering. The boys were now settling in against the stone wall, as if they eat lunch The boys were now settling in against the stone wall, like they liked to eat lunch outside, and Mick hadn't said more than, "Hey, Dev," since Devin had met up with him to walk to school. Devin was still in the twilight-like state of denial, but the twilight was wearing off. When Miss Peterson noted Kelsey's absence from class, a flimsy barrier between Devin and what he had done tore a little bit. The details were coming back. Mick opened his lunch sack and none of his usual enthusiasm. Devin tried to animate his friend. "What did you get today?" Mick's mom always put at least one treat in Mick's lunch, huh? Mick sniffed. "Oh, I don't know." Devin laughed. Devin sighed. Mick set down his sack and leaned toward Devin. He whispered, "I can't stop thinking about him." "Shh," Devin hissed. "Not here." Mick's eyes moistened and his face turned red. Devin glanced around and patted Mick's hand. "It's okay. We'll talk about it this afternoon, okay? We'll go to our camp." He hoped the words "our camp" would soothe Mick. Mick liked it when Devin called their makeshift tarp-covered temporary meeting place "our camp." Mick wiped his eyes. "Okay." But then he said it so quietly Devin could barely hear him. Settled cross-legged in the cool but dry forest floor, Mick played with a pile of tiny fir cones. Devin watched him, waiting for his friend to speak, but waited for several minutes. Finally, Mick said, "Well, what if he's still alive?" He glanced up from the fir cone art, then looked back down. That's what I can't stop thinking about. What if he's still alive?" Devin didn't respond. He thought about that too, but he was unsure. He wasn't sure, trying not to. "I almost puked when I called his name in class," Mick said. Devin could relate, but he didn't say so. Instead, he said, "I don't think he's still alive." Mick raised his head, blinked at Devin. "What? But you're not sure?" Devin shook his head and almost hear the ripping sound of flimsy barrier protecting him from the previous day tore open a little more. He screwed his eyes shut, as if would help. "No, I'm not sure." Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. By Wednesday, panic, fear, and mystery rippled through the school like convulsive waves radiating out of the Ground Zero event. All anyone was talking about. Where was Kelsey? The police had been called in. Mick stayed home from school sick for all 3 days. When Devin went to see him, Mick sore. He wouldn't say anything to anyone, but Mick couldn't keep any food down. His mother thought he had the stomach flu. Devin handled the whole thing better than Mick. His years living outside the social groups in school had given him the ability to keep his face neutral, no matter how he felt on the inside. He was able to go out on his business nearly invisibly. He was sure he looked normal, even though anything but. Every muscle in his body felt rigid. It hurt to move, but he couldn't stay still either. By the end of the week, Devin had nearly chewed his nails off. On Friday afternoon, Mr. Wright announced to the school that the police concluded Kelsey had run away. Apparently no one had seen Kelsey leave the school with Devin and Mick. And apparently Kelsey hadn't told anyone where he was going. Neither one of these things surprised Devin. As far as he knew, only he and Mick left the school the way they did, and they were only ones who ever cut through the railway yard. And of course, Kelsey wouldn't tell anyone he was going someplace with Mick and Devin. You only had to be in school a couple of days to know that it was a social suicide to hang out with Mick and Devin. Kelsey was smart enough to have figured that out. Devin was still surprised Kelsey had even apologized to him on Monday. He thought it was would be much harder than to lure Kelsey too. Accidents happen. Devin visited Mick on Friday afternoon. Mick was eating a bowl of soup when Devin arrived. He was keeping the food down, Mick's mom said, keeping Devin a hug in the doorway of Mick's room. I doubt he's contagious or anything. Go on in. Thanks, Mrs. Callahan. Devin smiled at a round, red-headed, freckled woman. He felt like bugs crawling up his arms. It was her hug. He felt the same every time his mom had hugged him during the week. He didn't deserve hugs. Do you want my soup? Any soup, dear? Miss Callahan said. There's plenty. Devin shook his head. Nah, I mean, no thank you. Miss Callahan chucked him under the chin. You boys are growing up so fast, he bustled away. Devin plopped down in the red beanbag chair just inside the door of Mick and Debbie's room. Hey, he said to Mick. He glanced at the bright blue and yellow polka dot divider curtain. Mick tucked under the red superhero blanket on his bed, propped up his pillows in matching cases, wiped his mouth. Hey, he was going to say something else, but went back to eating soup from the huge orange bowl. Devin looked around the tiny half room. Unlike Devin's room, it was pretty bare except for a few nature posters and a couple of rock collections. Mick's room was packed full of toys. It didn't look like a 15-year-old's room. It didn't look like a kid's room. Mick's part of the room didn't have much furniture, just a bed, a nightstand, some shelves with a drop-down desk built in. The shelves held books, and as if they were also crowded with superhero sci-fi action figures and stacks and board games. Devin looked at the curtain again. Mick must have noticed Debbie staying over at his friend's house. Devin nodded. Mick dropped his spoon and hit a bowl with a clatter. He wiped his mouth and said through a napkin he felt his face. What if he's still alive? Devin whipped around and made sure the door was still closed. She's in the kitchen, Mick said. Dad's not home. He shoved it straight away. I haven't told anyone, and I'm not going to, but I haven't stopped thinking about him. What if he's alive? It's been 6 days, yeah, but he's not alive. But he could be. How? He can't move. He doesn't have water. How long can people go without water? Mick said. Devin tried to answer that question. Mick said, wait, there was water in the kitchen. Devin tensed. Mick was right. What if Kelsey managed to get out of that? Mick asked. How? The suit was really heavy and he lost a lot of blood. Under a statement of the year. Mick twisted his mouth and thought about that. True, but what if the suit worked with him? Like he had said some suits like that can. What if it helped him get to the kitchen? Devin thought about the sounded pretty out there, but what part of it wasn't out there? If that happened, he could still be alive. We can't leave him there like that. Reading forward. I'll be quiet, I swear. But first, we have to go back and make sure he's, well, or not. If he's alive, we have to go help him. We just do, that's all. Mick wasn't going to let this go. Okay, Devin said, but we're not going, and I'll go. But no way is your mom going to let you out into the woods. She thinks you have the flu, and if you're right, we can't wait any longer. I'll go. What if he's alive? How will you get him to the hospital? I'll call someone after I check on him. Remembering the building cell phone dead zone, he said, I'll take bandages and stuff with me so I can, what do they call it, stabilize? So I can stabilize him. What I can do is stay there with him, take care of him until he's better. I can take food and stuff. And that's when he's better. I'll leave and go to cell phone range and call for help. That will give me time to convince him not to tell anyone anything. Mick rubbed his nose, thought over. Finally, he said, that's a good idea. Devin looked at his innocent friend. Mick had no clue. Devin got out of the beanbag chair and went to Mick's bed. He put his hand on Mick's shoulder. You have to make me a promise. What? I don't know how long it's going to take me to get Kelsey out of the suit and help him get well. You have to cover for me. Mick nodded. How? I'm going to tell my mom I'm spending a few days here because you need a company since Debbie's gone. She'll go for that. Okay. And if I'm not back by Monday, you have to tell teachers I'm homesick. Got it? Sure, I can do that. And as long as it takes, keep telling them I'm sick. Are you sure you can do that? Mick nodded. No matter what, I can't tell anyone where I am. Okay, I'll in it together swear if you want. Devin shrugged. Sure. He out his index finger and listened to Mick's in it together swear as he covered Devin's tracks as long as he needed. You're a good friend, Devin said. Mick grinned. When he got home from visiting Mick, Devin told his mom that he was going back. Oh, that's nice of you, kiddo, he said. He looked relieved. Devin figured she was thinking about going to bed early. Devin wanted to Paris room. He didn't look around. He wasn't sure what he was going to do. He got back to the pizzeria, But he was going back. He needed tools. He sat down at the edge of his twin bed and sagged under his weight. He had one of the box screens broken, as what if he didn't go back and just told Mick he'd gone back and found Kelsey dead. No, he couldn't do it. Even though he slept well Monday night, every night since he had nightmares, and every nightmare Kelsey was a zombie, stalking Devin no matter where he went. No, he had to go back and be sure. He picked up his backpack, he pulled his books and phone out, he glanced at the phone and sighed. Great, it was dead. Oh well, he put it on the charger, he wouldn't be able to use it near the building anyways. He looked around again, his gaze landed on the hammer lying on the floor in the open closet. He'd taken it Mom's meager supply of tools of text to shelf a couple of weeks ago, and he put it away. That would happen, open the suit, if it came to that. The sun was starting to sink into a horizon by the time Devin reached the blackberry-choked building. Before he ducked under the collapsed animal head opening, he got out of the flashlight and the hammer, as if he had since he entered the forest. He had its best to ignore the rustling, churring, and crackling of a herd in the woods. Just a little forest animal, he kept telling himself as he nervously ate the chocolate candy bar that would serve as his dinner. He would be waiting inside the building. Take a deep breath. Devin crawled into the building's outer entrance and then hesitated only a few seconds before slipping through the side light. Once there, though, he froze, shining his flashlight around the jerky spasms. He half expected Kelsey in a bloody bear suit to loom up in front of him and attack. He was poised to escape back through the side light, but nothing came at him. He was alone. Well, alone except for Kelsey's body in the bear suit and the animatronic characters on the stage. Devin took a tentative step and paused. He listened. The building was totally silent. It felt sinister. Devin had the urge to run even though nothing was moving. Nothing was chasing him. He caught his fears and moved forward. Bypassing the blood-soaked bear suit in the middle of the floor, Devin did a tour of the entire building. He went into every room, shined his light in every nook and cranny. He watched enough TV to know, cleared the building before he let down your guard. Everything was exactly as they left it there on Monday, except for the smell. The unearthly smell of lick odor of blood had hit Devin as soon as he stepped into the building. The other smell warded the smell of blood too. It was sickly, sweet, nauseating smell. Devin was pretty sure the smell of decay, but he wasn't sure. Okay, he put it off as long as he could. With slow, shuffling steps, Devin approached the bear suit. He stopped and he reached the outer edge of the blood pool. It was easy to spot. The blood had blackened in its stride. It was now dark on the floor, and its outline stood out starkly in the glow of Devin's flashlight. Gritting his teeth, Devin bent over and touched the edge of the blood. He yanked his hand back. It was still a little sticky. Okay, that was okay. When he was prepared for this, he didn't know how long it took blood to completely dry, but he figured the damp atmosphere of the building would slow down the process. Devin took off his backpack and he pulled out a plastic tarp he folded and stuffed into it. Instead of bringing the food and bandages he promised Mick he'd bring, he brought the tarp. He knew Kelsey couldn't be alive, and he didn't want to have to sit in blood to check Kelsey's. Devin made himself stop thinking. He set his backpack against the wall and spread the tarp over the blood near the head of the suit. He had to breathe, though. His nose, because the blood and decay smells were stronger. Kelsey had to be dead. Devin wouldn't be able to sleep, though, unless he knew for sure. He trained his light in the bear's head. His muscles stiffened because he expected to see Kelsey's eyes staring back at him through the eye holes in the bear heads, but nothing. The eye holes were empty, dark. Devin leaned closer, aiming the light down into the holes. Why couldn't he see Kelsey's face? Checked the other shoulder to see if he was still alone. Had the other characters of this stage moved? He sucked in his breath and ran the flashlight beam over them. He frowned. He couldn't remember how they had been positioned before. He watched for several seconds before returning the flashlight back to his task. He put his face closer to the bear's face. He couldn't see anything. He had to take off the head. That meant touching the bloody fur. Good thing he'd prepared for that, too. Devin dug into his pants pocket and pulled out a pair of his mother's rubber cleaning gloves. He put them on, propping the flashlight on the bear's chest to aim at the neck and hesitating for a second to be sure the chest wasn't moving. Devin felt the lock mechanism that held the bed in place. It took him only a few seconds to find it, but it wasn't released. He pushed, pulled, he pinched, finally pounded it with a hammer. The head wouldn't let go of the torso. Fine, Devin inserted a claw part of the hammer into the bear's mouth. Using the other hand on the leverage, he pried the mouth open. He sucked in the breath and ratcheting around the mouth and yanked it open. It sounded like teeth gnashing together. It made no sense. It was opening, not closing. Letting out his breath, Devin lit up his mouth, opening the flashlight. He tilted his head, looked as far as inside his head he could see. Nothing was inside it. Really? Devin shined the flashlight into the head some more. For sure empty. Did the bear suit cut off Kelsey's head? Yeah, and done what with it? Ate it? Goosebumps sprang up in Devin's arms because he was reminded of the bouncy house story. If the bounce house could eat a toddler, the bear costume could eat a teenager, right? Get a grip, he muttered. Somewhere in the building, something sputtered faintly. Devin whipped his head around and aimed the flashlight around the room. It was sounded sort of like a fizzle, like a hoarse exhale. It had come from behind him. Or in front of him. He rotated back quickly and expected the bear suit again. It was bloody for a gleam of light, but it wasn't moving. Get on with it, Devin commanded himself. He bent over and directed his light into the bear's mouth again. This time he concentrated on trying to see down into the torso. At first he didn't see anything. He thought he saw something farther down, but Kelsey somehow slid down the suit. Was that his hair, Devin could see? He turned the lights this way and that, and he couldn't see any better. He'd have to feel. Happy were the gloves he wore. Devin squared his shoulders in deep breath. Then he slid his arm through the bear's mouth down inside the bear's suit until all the most part of his arms were inside. He felt something around his head and feel something, but didn't hear something. Something called his name. Devin! Devin jerked around and yanked his arm from the suit, but the mouth clamped down his arm and took shut, and the sound stayed clank and crack. The crack was bone in Devin's arm. Grafton screamed in searing pain and shot from his bicep all the way down to the tip of his fingers. Tears sprang into his eyes. He wailed in agony and fear. He also tried to pull his arm out of the bear suit. Had idea. He hauled and held very still. Sweat joined the tears running down his face. Moving his arm was pure torture. It felt like the bear was trying to rip his arm off his body. Nausea crawled up from the stomach and choked him. He gagged and turned his head to vomit over his lap. The acidic smell of putrid brown chunky spew made him gag again, and he let loose another torrent of puke. Bawling now, Devin yelled for help, even though he knew it was going to come. Help! The sound had made it even worse than the sound Kelsey had made in the suit had impaled him. It was definitely worse than the dying cat. It was a sound of anguish and despair. It was a sound of hopelessness. Spittle dripped in his mouth and his cry dissolved in a sob, ignoring the torment of lava-hot pain in his right arm. Devin used his left hand to pound furiously at the bear's mouth. He kept hitting his arm with the hammerhead, and he shrieked every time he did. He kept trying to pound the mouth open, and he finally lost his strength to hold the hammer. It bounced off the terrace surface and hit the bloody floor with a thunk. He started trying to drag the bear suit across the floor. He was out of his head. Not thinking logically, he knew he couldn't move the suit. Collapsing in his own disgusting stink, Devin curled onto his side, whimpering at the very fresh wave of pain and tore through his arm. He tried to ignore the faint sensation of wet warmth trickling down his bicep. Calm down, he told himself. Mick knew where he was. Mick could come for him. Devin moaned. No, he wouldn't. Mick would do what Devin told him to do. Now, how long did it told him to bleed to death? Not long, if he was bleeding a lot. He didn't think, but he didn't feel like he was bleeding much. The trickle of warmth stopped at the elbow joint. He was moving anymore. No, he wasn't going to bleed to death. But now, long before he died of lack of water, that was what was going to happen. He hadn't brought water because he didn't plan on helping Kelsey, so now he couldn't help himself. Inside the suit, he flexed his fingers. He moaned when his movement sent another volley of pain up his arm. Then he froze, sucked in his breath, and clenched his fingers to his fist. He just felt something move inside the suit. No, not another slight brush or something moving against his knuckles. Bugs? Devin whispered. He watched enough TV shows and bugs like dead bodies. It was bugs, right? No, it couldn't be. Kelsey? Devin slashed the entire body, writhing violently in crazed panic. He threw his whole body into it, screaming through the pain and failing to use his arm. Vomit sprayed and plastic tarps trickled down. He couldn't stop. He fought to free himself with every bit of strength he had, but it wasn't enough. In fact, it was making things worse. After one of the buckling movements, Devin's arm loosened for just an instant. For the second it didn't start to come out. It went farther in. With dread, Devin looked at the suit and realized the mouth was opening farther. The suit was clamping around his shoulder instead of his bicep. Now he knew he was going to die here. He couldn't let his arm free and he couldn't move the suit. And Mick was going to be sure no one came for him. Mick was a disgrace and Devin plenty of times over the years, but he never went against Devin, not a single time. Devin thought of the movie he saw, and the man sawed his arm off to free himself and got his arm caught under a boulder. He gagged and retched. Not a good thought, but helpful, and not helpful either. Even if he had a knife or a saw, he couldn't think he could do it. Devin wriggled one more time, attempting to free himself. The mouth opened even more. Devin thought a sudden glimpse inside the suit. He gasped for a moment. A shock blocked his pain. Down low past his arm, Devin could see a body, a dead body, just like he thought he'd find as he came back here. Exactly like he thought he'd find. The body that he was finding didn't have blonde hair. It was curly black hair. The body in the suit wasn't Kelsey. Devin only had a second to try to make sense of his older shoulder and sucked in the suit. Devin screamed, but no one heard him. On Monday morning, Mick was disappointed when Devin didn't meet Mick and walk to school. Devin hoped to find Devin waiting for him in the lockers, waiting for him to Kelsey was going to be okay, or even waiting him to tell him Kelsey was dead. It wasn't good, but it was going to be better than they left things last week. He, not knowing whether Kelsey was dead, was like being eaten alive, like being digested in a creepy style bounce house in the story Devin read in the English class a couple of weeks ago. Was that just a couple weeks ago? Speaking of English class, Mick was supposed to read a poem out loud today. Remembering made him stomach churn. He twisted up his inside so much he didn't worry so much about Devin not being in school. Devin had told him it would take a while to get Kelsey well enough to move him. Something about that seemed... Someone bumped into Mick as he dropped back his pack. He bent over to pick it up in the class. In the English class, Mick reading his poem over and over while Mick Patterson did roll call. He was so into it, he jumped when Mr. Peterson called out, Mick. Here, yes, I know you're here. I asked you if you know where our budding horror writer is. Huh? Devin. Where's Devin? Oh, sorry, he's homesick. Okay, Mick smiled. He's done his part in it together for as long as it takes. Kelsey leaned against the column of the rotunda of the new school. He watched the other kids and smiled and nodded at everyone who passed him, saying, hey, when someone said hello. His gaze kept turning at a couple boys who lingered outside the front of the school. One of the boys wore black and other wore ragged jeans with a faded t-shirt. The other kids coming into school ignored the boys and gave him scathing looks. Both the boys occasionally snickered at the passing kids. Kelsey pushed off the column and strolled toward the boys. They finally sauntered into the school. He stopped in front of them and said, hey, I'm Kelsey. I'm new here. The boys eyed him above his nose. He gave them each friendly good. So, Kelsey said, any cool places to hang out around here? Oh, Kelsey's a murderer. So Kelsey kills kids, or kills one kid. Goodness. But yep, that's the end. So I can just, give me a second. Let's copy that actually, yeah. Well, let's not copy it, because then it's going to change everything, because that's how dumb OBS works. The end. The end. There we go. The end. Or, well, I should just, make it smaller and then put it here, then get rid of this, and then the end. There we go. Well, yep, that's the basic end of the story. Wow, out of all things, that's not the ending I thought. But you know what? That's very interesting. So Kelsey is a murderer, I think. There's a lot of plot holes in the story, though. Of, like, how he knew and stuff like that. How he planned it all. Or maybe it's like every time he dies, someone brings him back and something. Maybe that's what the scurrying sound was. Was Kelsey getting back up. Walking away. Honestly, I thought the animatronics were just going to attack him or something. But, nope. Anyways, yeah. Hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. If you can excuse me, I need to start up my stream, but also, I need to start up editing these videos and stuff, and I'm also going to edit a big video, which is all the chapters together, Anyways, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. People like, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 and I'll see you guys next time for the next book where we'll read, I don't know yet, but yeah.